Okay, this presentation's either going to hit home and make you kind of like do this laugh cry thing, or it's just not. So let's buckle in and see what happens. If you're a therapist who loves therapy and avoids the business side like it's a licensure exam that you didn't study for, then this one is for you. I did not go to grad school to learn about pricing tiers and tax strategies or how to know which electronic health record is the most culturally competent for my clients. However, here are some things that might look familiar from grad school, maybe ethics, theories, human growth and development, interviewing, and risk assessments. And then there's the things that aren't so familiar: cash flow, insurance billing, technology systems, taxes, and how not to panic pivot. These things aren't covered yet. Like, we have to deal with this stuff every single day. And then we open our private practice already slightly burnt out because what it took to become a therapist, and suddenly we're a CEO. Like, what's going on here? Hi, I'm Becca Ferguson. I'm a therapist, I'm a business owner. I am very ADHD, and I have built my business the right way, the wrong way, and the what the hell was I thinking way. I'm the owner of Authentic Coaching and the Therapy Office in Northwest Arkansas, where I help therapists and helpers create sustainable, values based practices. I actually love the business side of being a therapist, and that's actually kind of like my weird little special interest. But loving it doesn't mean that I didn't build parts of it from urgency. I built a group practice out of burnout. I actually thought that scale would give me some sort of relief. Newsflash, it gave me a lot of complexity. That's when I realized that no one had actually taught me sequencing or flexibility, really the skills of being a business owner in general. And because my ADHD learns by teaching, I kept everything. My brain is like an episode of Hoarders. It's just in there. It's just in there all the way, all the time, packed in there for good. Visitors beware. It's all the mistakes, all the pivots, all the lessons, and I ended up turning it into structure. We're going to go ahead and we're going to rewind. When most of us decided to open up a private practice, it's kind of this like calm, serene feeling, right? For a second. So let's remember that. We're really excited. We picture the office, it has this good name. Our Psychology Today profile is going to be nice and clean. We're going to have this autonomy, and we're finally going to do things the right way. It's our way. And in our heads, this list, it feels really simple. It's like the things that we thought we knew, the simple private practice plan. All we need is an electronic health record, an office, a business license, some insurance credentialing if we choose to go that route, and a few referrals. Everyone is already promising that they're going to send us clients, so, I'm here. And let's just see the clients. That is the list. Now, go ahead and send me my check, and I will be on my way. Then, there's the unexpected business list. This is the stuff that no one warned us about. We see it creep up a little bit at a time. We start having some questions. Why am I not getting referrals? Is my niche too broad? Is it too narrow? Am I documenting things wrong? Why is insurance paying this little? How do I even raise my rate? Why does marketing feel like a public speaking in a Shark Tank? Is everyone judging my Facebook posts in these groups? What if I discharge wrong? What if I get audited? Pause. This is where your self doubt starts to enter. This is where you start second guessing yourself as a therapist. And none of this was in grad school. None of it. We're really going to start kicking up the dirt, and things are really going to start moving along here. But before you start hyperventilating, I'm going to add another list. This list is the personal list because while all this is happening, life is happening too, and we can't forget about that. We know that in this life list, the house isn't clean, you forgot to eat, you might be fighting with your partner or your roommate, and you maybe have a parent that you're taking care of, or your kid got in the car without their shoes and you're halfway to school drop off on a Monday. You're avoiding asking for help. Someone tells you to stop psychoanalyzing them for the 5th time at a family reunion. You're carrying trauma of your own. You're exhausted. You feel isolated from other therapists because you're not sure about anything anymore. This is the part that no one is talking about. The business doesn't exist in a vacuum. You're realizing things are starting to kind of mesh together. And the overwhelm, it's there. Okay, if you're starting to feel this in your body, we have one more list. This list is what I like to call the combo list from hell. This is where urgency is born. And this combo list, it's everything. All 3 lists merge. You're on high alert. You're not thinking about vision anymore. You start thinking about survival. This is not a productivity issue. This is what we like to call a layered threat. Now, layered urgency, really, I'm just making stuff up now. I'm going to slow it down and name these 5 layers with you. These are not just 5 random bullet points. These are 5 pressures that you might actually recognize in your day-to-day life. The first layer, this is where we have our clinical pressure, and it's probably one of the biggest ones. This is the layer that we were actually trained for. Well, kind of. We have diagnosis, treatment planning, risk assessment, our scope of practice, our ethical discharge, and even here, if your eyebrows just went up a little bit and you laughed out loud when I said that you were trained for that, it was maybe because you probably had to pay out of pocket for someone to teach you how to actually diagnose in a way that survives insurance audits. I mean, yeah. Not all grad school programs are equal. And that's not a personal failure. That's a structural gap in our systems that we have within our schools and our programs that are actually preparing us for the world and how we help our clients. So even the layer we're supposed to feel confident in can activate doubt. Questions like, am I documenting this correctly? What if I miss something? What if this audit letter means that I did something wrong? Should I know this already? Clinical pressure isn't just about doing therapy, it's about being responsible for safety, ethics, documentation, and outcomes. Wait for it, all at once. We were trained to think clinically. We were not trained to think structurally. And that difference, it matters, especially when you're trying to own a business as a helper. The next layer is financial pressure. This one sits quietly until it doesn't. And you know what I'm talking about. And maybe it's going to ask questions like, why is insurance reimbursement so low? Should I raise my rate? How do I pay myself? What happens if referrals are slow? What if the economy shifts? Money stress activates survival really, really fast. And it's not because you're greedy, it's because you're human. We all need money to survive, but as humans, that work with humans that also have money stress. We're conditioned essentially to think about them and their needs and forget about ours. And then our families are trying to understand how all of those balls are being juggled up in the air when we can't charge our no show fees. You're human. It makes sense. The third layer, administrative pressure. Raise of hands if you're struggling with the administrative pressure over here. Ah, this is the invisible layer that doesn't generate revenue directly or like any revenue if you work for any sort of company ever because they just pretend that administrative stuff doesn't like exist ever if you're a therapist at all. Sorry, no shade. No shade. Let's think about the things that are on this list. We have credentialing, marketing, emails, EHR management, phone calls, compliance, and tech issues. This is the part that therapists didn't sign up for. And honestly, it's relentless. Now let's go into layer 4. This is our identity pressure. We want to know if we're even good at this. The imposter monster is here in the room. We're going to start saying things to ourselves like, I should know how to do this. Or, why does everyone else look so confident? Shouldn't I have learned this in grad school? Why am I scared to ask another therapist? I don't want to look incompetent. This is where the shame creeps in. And this layer is loud. And shame makes urgency louder. It just does. Super loud and annoying and frustrating. Honestly, it's just loud and annoying. Then we have layer 5. This is where personal pressure really sits in. And guess what? We're not going to budget for it at all because why are we going to think that far ahead? I mean, there might be some of us that budget for it, but when we start our practice, we're not thinking about all of the personal issues that are going to happen and affect us because our practice is going to be great. It's not fire. It's fine. It's fine. Let's think about the things that would affect us in this layer: our relationship tension, housework, trauma history, our family dynamics, political anxiety and global changes, burnout, exhaustion. And the business does not pause when life gets heavy. In fact, business will keep going and going and going. Now, here's where we're going to take a pause and just reflect for just a second. If you're thinking about all of these layers, can you imagine a time in your life where all 5 of them have activated all at once? Think about what happens. Your brain does not prioritize. It's going to mobilize. And mobilization is not the same thing as strategy. If you're neurospicy, then your brain does not gently filter layers. Guess what it's going to do? It's going to stack that sucker. And stacked pressure, it feels a lot like urgency. In fact, like it's on fire. So when layered pressure mobilizes your nervous system, it usually shows up in one of 2 patterns. And most therapists are going to bounce between both. It's it's honestly not fun. So let's talk about these patterns. Let's start with pattern 1. This is called overfunctioning. And here are some things that we might do when we're overfunctioning. Maybe you'll take on just one more client. You promise, just one more. You can squeeze it in. It's not that big of a deal, right? You're going to tweak the website just to make it perfect because that's what you need to do, right? You're going to research instead of making a decision. You're going to stay up late fixing something. You'll say yes because saying no feels unsafe. Over functioning feels productive, but you're not building anything in this mode. All you're doing is bracing for something. You're not functioning at your best capacity. Now we have a second pattern. This is when we freeze. Now, this is not like freezing like an ice cube, even though, heated blanket would be a great solution if that could solve all of our problems, but it's not. This is when we avoid billing. We're not going to open up the audit letter. We're not going to send a rate increase email. You're not going to post anything to let people know anything about what you're doing, taking clients or not taking clients. You tell yourself you're going to just deal with it tomorrow. Freeze does end up feeling like failure eventually. It's still protection. You're not being lazy. You're overloaded and there's no priorities because you have a million of responsibilities. So here's where we get to the frustrating part. Both patterns feel terrible. Let's just go ahead and lay that out there. Overfunctioning leads to burnout, and freezing leads to shame. So, what are we going to do? We're going to bounce back and forth. This is exactly what I told you at the beginning, right? Because this is what makes sense to us. So, one week, we're in overdrive. And then the next week, you can't open your email. This is where the trap happens. Here's the thing. Neither of those patterns build any infrastructure. They create movement, but they do not create any sort of stability. So if urgency creates reaction and freeze or overfunction just creates more movement, then what actually creates structure? I am so glad you asked because I was starting to feel like this presentation was a lot of doom and gloom. Well, here's where I come in because this is where the values that I love to preach about come in to save the day. It's like when you're watching a really good season of Big Brother and you realize that you've made it so far in the season that you get to watch BB Comics and you're so excited about it. That's how good it feels to get to the values section of this presentation. Here's the deal. I love values, but urgency does get in the way a lot for my neurospicy brain. And I know that I can't solve my layered urgency with more productivity, even though I love to convince myself of that. I can solve it though with some filtration. Because when everything feels urgent, the problem isn't how hard we try, it's how we show up for ourselves and our business. Values aren't really just about inspirational quotes. It's not just a Pinterest board. They're not work life balance written in script font. Values are decision filters. They help you see two core things: perspective and flexibility. So let's talk about those two core parts. Perspective comes from asking, what is actually happening around me and what do I need to learn or delegate? Then we have flexibility. Flexibility comes from asking, do I actually have the capacity for this right now? Perspective is going to help you see what's important. Well, flexibility helps you admit what's actually possible. Both of these things are necessary. So let's talk about this in context because I love to use things in just like the realest form that we can do it. Values aren't aesthetic. Like I said before, they're structural. They can shape who you are as a therapist and who your practice becomes over time. The values ask, what kind of therapist do I want to be long term? What kind of caseload supports my nervous system? What kind of income level sustains my life? Not just my ego. What boundaries protect my energy? What am I not available for? What kind of business owner do I refuse to become? Now that's a good question. Now, without values, everything feels like survival. We kind of talked through that for the first part of this presentation. So we're going to really put this into practice. Let's say you value sustainability, but if you do actually value sustainability, you're not going to add 3 clients just because referrals are slow. You need to focus on what's coming up in the way. Like, why are referrals slow? Is it deductible season? Your clients need a group? What do we add? If you value autonomy, we're not going to panic pivot your niche just because someone online said it's more profitable to do something else. If you value presence, are you going to sacrifice your time and your nervous system for optics? Probably not, because your presence and how you show up for your family, yourself, your schedule, whatever it is, we don't sacrifice anything for that. Values don't remove pressure, they organize it. They guide you in a way and show you yourself in context. That's what they do. Now, we look at values for ourselves in our personal life, but imagine if we looked at values for our business as a guide for that. Organized pressure becomes more manageable. And when you know what you stand for, urgency gets quieter. It doesn't disappear, but it does lose its authority. So when urgency loses its authority, you can make decisions instead of constantly feeling like you have to defend yourself, which is what we see a lot inside of all of the forums that we have amongst each other. People constantly feeling like they have to defend themselves inside of our field. So let's put this into action. If this has gotten you fired up and you want to try something immediately, here's something that you can do that's really, really simple. I want you to write down everything that feels urgent. And if you're not a writer or a journaler and you're more of a verbal processor, then I want you to do that too. There's different apps that you can use for that. An app called Granola, which is a great app where you can speak and it will kind of transcribe into notes whatever you say. Also using Loom for a good transcription app, or just using your voice memos app, whatever it is that you need to use if you're a verbal processor. But you don't always just have to write things down. I always suggest that you can like talk it out, write it out, dance it out, whatever it is that you need to do. This is all for you. Once you get all of those things out, we're going to put them into the layers. Are they clinical, financial, administrative, identity, or are they personal? And then ask, is this structural or is it emotional? And does it require action or capacity? And does it align with my values? Then choose one structural move, not 5, not 10, just one. Think of something like, I want to clarify my niche boundaries, or I want to set up documentation time blocks, or email a consultant about audit support, or I want to raise one fee tier intentionally. I want to outsource a home task. Clarity is going to reduce chaos faster than motivation ever will. For a long time, I really thought that clarity meant finding that right list. So I listened to podcasts, I followed all the coaches, I saved all of the checklists, I took notes during the trainings, I even screenshotted the threads in all the therapist Facebook groups. And I really want you to hear me when I say this. None of that was wrong. Education is not the problem. But I was trying to apply advice without asking whether or not it matched my stage, my capacity, or my values. And when you're already activated, even good advice can feel overwhelming. That's when the urgency starts stacking again. So I stopped looking for the perfect list and I started building filtration. That's where Make It Make Sense came from, because therapists deserve access to a process that helps them build their practice without gatekeeping, without guesswork, and without pretending we were taught all of this stuff in grad school. So I'm going to clarify like what it actually is. But first I'm going to tell you what it isn't. It's not a formula. It's not a blueprint that you have to copy. It's not, hey, just do it my way. Make It Make Sense is a collection of questions and structured steps where you insert your values. That's the difference. Make It Make Sense walks you through identifying which layer you're in, clarifying your stage of business, filtering your urgency, and choosing your next structural move. So instead of reacting to someone else's roadmap, you are going to build yours. And yes, I include resources, connections, and links with discounts because if I already had to learn it the hard way, guess what? You don't. If you ever felt like everyone else got the rule book and you didn't, I promise you are not crazy. You are not behind. However, I cannot promise you a perfectly level playing field. But I do care deeply about justice and equity in our field. And that's why I am so passionate about collaboration and access to real resources, especially when it feels like your brain is on fire. Because we were never meant to build practices in isolation. Support is not a weakness. Filtration is not failure, and needing structure does not mean that you are incompetent. It means that you are a human. And if you're looking for someone who understands both the therapy brain and the business brain, I'd be honored to be a part of your community. So thank you so much for joining me. I really hope that this gave you something steady to hold on to. All right, I guess I'm going to see you on the gram. I guess that's what the kids are saying these days. Peace out. Bye.